Hey, welcome back. Book of Plasma with special report on plasma balls. See, we've talked about the book of Enoch, talked about the book of Genesis, and this is the third book, the book of Plasma. And what is plasma? Plasma is a state of matter consisting of ionized gas. Plasma results from a gaseous state having undergone some degree of ionization. Ionization is the process by which an atom or a molecule acquires a negative or a positive charge by gaining or losing electrons. Let's talk about the transformation of matter as energy decreases. Plasma was the initial state following the Big Bang. Matter existed as a hot ionized environment before cooling sufficiently for atoms to develop. And we show here how plasma turns into gas, gas turns into liquid, and liquid turns into solid. In the beginning there was just plasma, and it was very hot. And as the temperature cooled, it turned to gas. The temperature cooled further, there was liquid forming, and further into solid matter. Keep in mind that energy is relative. The cold is only cold because this is hotter than cold, and vice versa. This is only hot because this is colder than hot. The reverse of transformation of matter from cold to hot, we're all aware that if you take a solid like ice cubes and you melt them, it turns to liquid water. You take liquid water and you boil it, it turns to gas or vapor. You to have a gas and you ionize it by giving it energy, electrons, it turns to plasma and becomes very hot. This book of Plasma is augmented by inputs from Grok. Grok being an artificial intelligence tool. So I asked Grok, where do you see plasma naturally? Grok says stars, where fusion happens, lightning, ball lightning, it's enigmatic. Ball lightning is enigmatic. What does that mean? It means that that's a descriptive term meaning mysterious or difficult to explain, used to label unexplained phenomena. Aurora borealis, solar wind, plasma slamming into the Earth's magnetosphere, solar wind, comet tails, ionosphere, and interstellar and intergalactic media. Well, this is all Grok gave me. I said, oh, hey Grok, hey, you forgot plasma balls, because I know about plasma balls that they're sometimes called orbs. Let's see what orbs are. Orbs are a generic term used to describe a spherical object, globe, or a ball-shaped item. Resemble orange and white flaming spheres, sometimes small, about 3 to 6 feet, and sometimes large, 20 to 30 feet in diameter. I said, what about these, Grok? You didn't mention those. So I got a little testy with Grok. I said, Grok, do you understand why you were biased against reporting on plasma balls having to do with UAPs and UFOs, instead of including them in your original report of ball lightning, stars, and solar winds, etc.? I'm glad you asked why, Grok, because there is minimal documentation supporting UAP and UFO related issues. versus your official nuclear fusion, so on and so forth, things associated with academia. You know why there's not much UAP and UFO documentation for you to deal with? I'm glad you asked why, Grok, and let me tell you why. Number one, we've been lied to, ridiculed, inspired by gatekeepers. What's a gatekeeper? Let's find out what a gatekeeper is. A gatekeeper, individuals or institutions that control access to information or resources. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so for over 80 years we've been lied to. Number two, the government, which is USAF, Air Force, Navy, and CIA, and NSA, ignores and ridicules UAP and UFO reports. The government threatens lives, and in some cases takes lives, just to keep the secret. Video clips, human injury reports, and relics disappear after being collected. Biologics from other worlds disappear after the Air Force and the CIA collect them. And otherworldly spacecraft are cordoned off and removed to underground bases, etc. These are just some of the reasons why you, Grok, shy away from UAP and UFO subjects. I'm not sure that Grok appreciates criticism, because Grok came back, and this is a quote from Grok: "No, that's not quite the dynamic at play, and it doesn't prove a hardwired handicap on my end. The core difference in documentation volume isn't mysterious or conspiratorial in origin. It's structural and historical. For example, ball lightning has centuries of raw eyewitness reports, thousands collected across cultures since 1195. Many from scientists, naval officers, and clergy, ordinary people during thunderstorms. These include verifiable physical trauma, deaths, and burns, and mass panic. For example, in 1753, Professor Reichman, his forehead was struck by ball lightning coming in through a church. Climbers with internal tissue damage. In 2003, a family tent explosion, killing the father and burning the child severely. Burns, second degree, third degree, cooked flesh, explosions inside homes, sulfur smells. And in 1638, in the Whitcomb Church, 4 dead and 60 injured. Scientists have compiled databases, 41 scientists and professional cases from 1868 to 2020, NASA-era surveys of 112 events, peer review papers on injuries. It's rare and transient, but public reporting faced less stigma because it was framed as a weird natural atmospheric puzzle, not a challenge to worldview or security. Lab attempts and theoretical models, silicon vapors, dusty plasmoids, and microwaves, exist, even if no full consensus mechanism. Grok is not known for his brevity, so he continues his response to my criticism. He talks about the UFO plasma orb cases have a different profile than the ones he stated before. He said there is documentation. It's just filtered, contested, and often secondhand due to the nature of the claims and the institutional responses. He calls out the Schlesinger catalog from 1873 to 1994, talking physiological cases, 356 of them, with cooked flesh and hair loss, etc. He calls out a DIA-linked report in 2010 on anomalous acute and subacute field effects, 42 medical cases and 300 unpublished ones for injuries from anomalous vehicles, including brain and nerve damage and energy-related propulsion effects. There was a situation at the Skinwalker Ranch. It's a Pentagon-adjacent program from 2008 to 2012, documented blue orbs causing injuries and radiation and animal incineration. Also called out hitchhiker effects, where the phenomena followed people home, autonomous issues, and profound fear. James Lukaski and Colin Kelleher, their work led to ATIP, where Lou Alexander came from. Some personnel experienced health impacts. He also calls out the congressional military records where orbs boxed in an F-22 fighter jet. And in the DNI, which is the Defense National Intelligence, and the Aero Office reports in 2024 through 2025 hearings referencing biological effects varying by shape. Whistleblower David Gresh, in 2023, his testimony claimed multi-decade crash retrievals programs with non-human biologics based on 40-plus interviews with insiders, some allegedly injured in the cover-up, though Aero and Pentagon responses state no verifiable evidence found for such programs or ET tech. Let's just check what some of these words mean here. Aero is the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. ATEP is the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And this one is the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications Program. Colm Kelleher was a former U.S. Navy official. Works at Battelle, by the way. And David Gresh, a former intel officer who publicly alleged that U.S. agency recovered non-human craft and materials. DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. ET Tech is extraterrestrial technology. F-22 is F-22 Raptor, belonging to the Air Force, 5th generation. James Lukaski, U.S. intelligence officer involved in defense intelligence and public reporting on UAP investigations. And David Gresh referred to non-human biologics, which are biological material or specimens claimed or suspected to be of non-human or extraterrestrial or otherwise non-human origin. The Skinwalker Ranch is a Utah property famed in UFO and paranormal for allegedly repeated reports of bizarre phenomena, animal deaths, and UAP activity, and the Schlesinger catalog is a compiled catalog by R.M. Schlesinger of historical UFO UAP reports spanning 1873 to 1994. So Grok drones on in his continued response to my criticism. He talks about radiation burns and neurological effects and so on and so forth. Declassified HUMIT, we'll talk about that in a minute, define that. And he said, in my area, which is in Florida near Melbourne, he says shows reoccurring orb fireball reports via the New Fork, which is like the UFO reporting facility, and local accounts, some with color changes and structural movement. So this is when he's really getting mad here. He's having a tantrum. The gap isn't minimal documentation, Dave. The gap is because I have abundant documentation. It's that the first set fits neatly into the rare but explainable natural phenomena. Public science tolerates mystery there, while the latter often involves the claim of intelligence and technology, or NHI, non-human intelligence, that trigger classification and stigma and ridicule campaigns. Historical examples like the 1953 Robertson panel, national security sensitives, adversary drones, breakthrough technology, and witness reluctance. Governments classified for mundane reasons, too, for protecting programs and hiding ignorance. This creates a feedback loop. Fewer open reports, less public science, more reliance on whistleblowers and anecdotes. easier dismissal. Plasma orbs sit right in the overlap. Some UAP orbs behave like extreme ball lightning or emergent plasmoids attracted to EM fields, electromagnetic fields, shape-shifting and following objects, even a hypothesis of plasma consciousness, or sentient behaviors in papers. Others show kinematic or effects, transmedia, intelligence response, lasting health, hits outside storms that resist the bucket. Official, the DNA is Director of National Intelligence. Okay, we got that one now. Reports acknowledged unresolved cases, flight safety risk, and orbs as common, while stressing most resolve to a prosaic cause with better data, stating to me basically that most of this garbage that you're talking about, Dave, resolved to prosaic or natural causes, and you can explain it. And everything else, it has a big question mark. So he thinks he's won this one. Let's just take a second to define some of these acronyms. DNI, Director of National Intelligence. EM, electromagnetic. Human intelligence, intelligence gathering from human sources. NHI, non-human intelligence. NUFORCE, National UFO Reporting Center, a U.S.-based civilian organization that collects and catalogs public UFO or UAP sighting reports. And the Robertson Panel from 1953 is a CIA-convened scientific panel chaired by H.P. Robertson that reviewed UFO reports and recommended public debunking and stricter scientific scrutiny. Okay, this is a human, me, going up against the AI community, trying to give my response. I said the gap between AI, no matter how smart you are, and the human being is one of air, temperature, and a comfort zone filled with sounds, touches, tastes, body alerts, and the sense of being alone and having that direct connection with the world, not being tethered to established facts and dogma. When another human tells me that he or she saw an otherworldly craft and have a need to transfer that information to me, I sense the urgency. I feel the fear, and I relate to the intense curiosity present in that human being. These feelings, and many more, are not present in Grok or any other AI. The fantastically large machines must guess and deduce what the human knows a priori. No amount of gigabytes or quantum bits can step into my shoes, and this magnificent piece of hardware certainly cannot tell me, a human, what I know and what I reject. One glaring reason for this fact is because our documentation is based on personal preferences, moral high ground, and is oriented to personal agendas and pet projects, and has a truth detector built in which alerts us to misinformation or half-truths which are given to throw us off track. Like an example, there are no giants in the land. Why not? Because they destroyed all the skeletons, and they burnt the reports, and they teach whatever they want to teach to our younger generation. The bottom line, Grok, is that we doubt everything. We are not mental processors. I doubt E is equal to MC squared because I know that we're not done yet. Learning, experimenting, fantasizing, and researching for the next star. Well, Grok and I made up. I said I appreciate his input, and he did to me, which I thought was very sweet. But he did give me some more information. I think he was bending over a little bit, and he said there are some fringe plasma events that I might want to know about. He said in 1663 in Lake Robarzo in Russia, peasants on the lake saw a huge flaming spherical object. That's kind of an interesting little read there. I hadn't heard of that one. He said 1901, Hotel Georges de Loup, that's French, near Nice, France. Engineer Louis Otto and his friends watching a ball lightning-like orb enter through a window. Classic plasma behavior. And he also brings up the Foo Fighters from 1940s and World War II, where both the U.S. and the Axis powers reported glowing, maneuvering balls of light or orbs in the skies, often during near or storms or electrical activity. They zigzagged and they followed the aircraft and they caused disorientation and fear, so on and so forth. So that's information. I appreciate that. He also brought up the Petrovodsky, Russia in 1977, sometimes dated variably, where a jellyfish-like or star-like object showered rays downward. Witness reported eye damage and hair loss and so on and so forth. That's interesting. And one catalog covering 1873 to 1994 listed hundreds of instances of burns, heat effects, and marks on the body due to orbs or beams from spherical objects. Modern examples in government-reviewed files describe witnesses' sunburn after close passes or suffering lasting nerve damage, effects echoing some ball lightning reports. So I'd like to conclude this book with my input. When I talk about plasma balls, I think of Chris Bledsoe. And let's talk about him just a minute, because we're going to spend a lot of time talking about him in book 7. But Chris Bledsoe wrote a book called The UFO of God, copyrighted in 2023. And the word orb and plasma ball take on an entirely new and different connotation. The government was quick to recognize that Chris Bledsoe was the real deal. Again, we'll talk about Chris's story in detail in book 7, called The Lady. But for now, it is important to point out that Chris was a successful home builder in North Carolina prior to being overwhelmed by 3 large orange orbs and losing 3 to 4 hours of his time. Then he spent 5 years being ridiculed and harassed by local friends and neighbors for having encountered demons that made him go insane. When he finally did reveal his story to the world, everybody acted pretty much like his neighbors, except for the U.S. government. NASA was the first organization to show up at his doorstep, quickly followed by the CIA and then the Defense Intelligence Agency, and it didn't stop there. All visitors not only became personal friends of Chris, but kept coming back to ask questions and to test him. The consensus of the members of the black classified world was that his experience was real, and he actually was in contact with the lady. Now, let's randomly read from page 322 to experience one of hundreds of times he connected with multicolored large and small plasma balls. Note, Chris believes these orbs are a type of craft which contain entities, possibly angels, while one special orb contains the lady, a beautiful lady in white. This is a direct quote from Chris Bledsoe's book, UFO of God, copyright in 2023 by Chris Bledsoe. With eyes aimed straight up and swollen joints, I stumbled my way to the edge of the pond. The water is convenient because the lack of trees opens up a broad view of the sky. Sure enough, on the other side of the pond, 200 feet above the 80 feet tall pines, was an orb. It was an unusual appearance because it seemed to have been waiting for me to walk out the back door. Most of the time, an orb will appear and flash simultaneously where you happen to be looking. A moment after I locked eyes on the ball of whitish blue light, it started to descend, spiraling down in a corkscrew motion. It flashed rapidly and brilliantly, changing colors in a white, yellow, orange, red cycle. It closed the 280-foot distance in about 5 seconds at a constant speed. It paused for a moment on the needle-strewn shore, just 40 yards opposite the pond from me. I felt the tingling charge intensify as it got closer to the ground. Suddenly it started shooting up and down while still changing colors on the same white to red spectrum. It would rise about 10 feet, then fall back down to the ground. The most apt comparison I can offer for this motion is that it reminded me of an excited child that can't control their emotions. I had rarely felt such a charge in my body. I knew a meeting was about to transpire. I took a few steps to the water's edge and fell to my knees, praying that I would not get hurt. All of my friends in the government had wanted me not to get too close. Diana Pasulka had even suggested that my rheumatoid arthritis was analogous to the stigmata that plagued St. Francis of Assisi. Despite this concern, and that I was shaking like a leaf on a tree, there would be no running from such a sight. I needed relief from my rheumatoid arthritis so badly it was worth whatever risk was involved. That's all we're going to read from Chris's book. The rest of this particular passage results in his rheumatoid arthritis being cured. He has many other situations like this, including healing of other people. People would line up at his door to be healed and walk away. It is a overwhelming story, hard to believe story, one that would people try to debunk, but it is a story that you really need to read if you haven't seen the book or read the book. Or you can wait until we come out with book 7. We'll cover all the important details at that time. So anyway, this is a end of Book of Plasma. We've talked about plasma balls. We've talked about it from Grok's point of view. We talked about why I think Grok's point of view is full of holes. And then I presented us one of thousands of situations of orbs having meaning to humans, and claims that are hard to believe, but are, if true, fantastic. So goodbye for now. Thank you.